Hi friends, welcome back to my channel. If you're new, my name is Emily. Today we're hopping right into these DIY and thrift flip projects. These are all wood-based items that I have either thrifted or grabbed at an estate sale recently. Actually, one of these projects I did on a video a long time ago, and now I am giving it another upcycle little makeover. So I really hope that you are excited for these projects. We're gonna hop right into this first one. I grabbed this cutting board from an estate sale a couple weeks ago. I thought it was a really unique cutting board, mainly because I'm pretty sure it was handmade. It's really thin, but I really liked the shape of it, and it took me a little while to figure out what I wanted to do with it, but I was inspired by the lemon transfer by IOD, and I decided to kind of recreate that front cover of this transfer set. So that is why I painted everything black first, and then I'm going to add the lemon transfer on top of it. Now, I kind of had a couple different ideas on the design for it, but in the end, I really liked how the front cover of that transfer book looked, so I ended up just trying to recreate how all of the lemons just were kind of cascading down, and I thought this would look really nice in a kitchen, not just for spring and summer, but really all year round. So I'm cutting off some of the transfer. I didn't want to lose all of it. So if there were bits and pieces that were intact, I wanted to keep those, not only to potentially use on this project, but on future projects. I haven't used this lemon transfer in a really long time, so I still have several left, but I always want to save as much as I can when I'm crafting. I did want to point out that the black paint that I used was actually house paint. It wasn't chalk paint or anything like that. So I let it sit for a little while longer just because I wasn't sure if the transfer was going to stick to it or not, since it wasn't chalk paint, and I haven't really used transfers on paint that is not chalk paint. So I just want to let you know that I had no issues with the transfer adhering to this paint, or even it affecting the black paint at all. Like, nothing peeled up, and I let it sit for a couple hours. It wasn't overnight, but I did let it sit longer than I normally do with chalk paint. When I got to the bottom here, I just burnished as best as I could, and then once I removed the top sheet, I did take my X-Acto knife to the edges so that I could trim off that excess transfer without tearing it. I didn't really want any of the transfer overlapping onto the back. I've done that in previous projects, but I just wasn't going for that with this one. And actually, I forgot that piece of transfer that I did cut off, I ended up using it on this piece. There was that little bit of extra open area, and I decided to fill it with some of this leftover transfer. And once I was done with that, I was going back and forth with what else I wanted to do with this cutting board. So I decided that I kind of wanted to make it into either like a recipe holder or even like a picture holder. So I did drill a hole in the top part so that it could be hung up if needed or desired. And I have this clothespin that I'm putting into this mixture of Waverly antique wax with water. I'm going to shake it up really well so that that mixture gets applied to the entire clothespin, and then I will dry it off. I find this a lot easier than trying to paint the piece. This way it total coverage, super quick and easy. So I am going to let that dry before I do adhere it with glue. And I'm going to be using E6000. You could just use hot glue. I mean, a recipe or a picture is not going to break that off, but sometimes clothespins can snap off. So that's why I decided to use the E6000 over hot glue. I did forget to mention that before I added the clothespin, I did a couple coats of the Clear Matte Rust-Oleum spray to seal the transfer in, just to ensure that nothing happened to the transfer or even the paint on this piece. So I did want to add a little tag to this. I am putting it in my booth, so I wanted whoever's walking by, maybe to get an idea of what they wanted to use it for. So I am just using IOD stamps, spelling out the word recipe with some permanent ink, and I'm going to attach that to the clothespin, and then this piece is done. I really hope that you guys like this first project. So for project number 2, we are going to be giving this riser a makeover. I made this riser a while ago, probably like a year ago. If I can find the video, I will link it in the description. I made it for my guest bathroom, and it held the jars for the cotton balls and stuff like that. But I am giving it a makeover, and I'm going to actually put it into my booth. So I really want to keep the legs the stained color, and I decided I'm going to paint the top portion this beautiful weeping willow green. I love this color so much. So I'm going to give it a really good coat of the green, and then once it dries, I'm going to give it a light distressing. I'm going to smooth out the chalk paint and also bring back some of that stained wood. Now, I was going back and forth on what I wanted to do. I have this transfer set. It's like the ephemeral melange transfer. I've had it for a while. I'm not a huge fan of all the transfers in this one. It just doesn't, it's not 100% my vibe. So I'm kind of trying to piecemeal through this transfer set. And this one transfer is a huge transfer, but I just really only wanted the flowers from the bottom portion. So that's what I'm doing. I'm going to cut out just the area that I want, which is the flowers, and I do cut out some of the wording by the flowers as well. That is one nice thing about these transfers, is that if you can cut out portions of them to get the desired effect that you're looking for your projects. Now, I also grabbed this other transfer from the traditional pots transfer set, and I cut out the little portion that I wanted. I just wanted a little bit of wording in the opposite corner of this transfer, and then I'm just going to apply the transfers, burnish them really well, and then this piece is almost done. The one thing about when you're cutting transfers out of a piece, the parts that you do cut, there is like no wiggle room between the transfer and then the item that you're transferring on. So I was a little worried that I may scratch up some of the chalk paint. So I did apply the backing to the top portion of those areas where there was like no buffer between the transfer and the riser portion itself, and I buffed that out, and it actually worked really, really well, and I had no issues on the chalk paint. So I continued to do that on this part as well. And then when I was done with this, I just decided to do a couple coats of polyacrylic to seal it in. If someone is going to be using this for a riser, maybe even if they were to put a plant on it, I wanted to make sure that it had good coverage. So that's why I believe I did 2, maybe 3 coats of the polyacrylic, and then this one is done. You'll have to let me know what you guys think. Okay, and for our last project, we have another cutting board here, but it is going to be completely different than the first one. So I did thrift this one and I really liked the shape and the wood grain in here. One side had been used, the other side was smooth, like it had not been cut on. So I did take it outside and I sanded it down really well, both sides. I did 180 grit and then up to 220 just to make sure that everything was as smooth as possible. So I focused on the one side that was clean and didn't have any of the cut marks, but I did apply polyacrylic to both sides. So I'm going to be putting a transfer on here, but I didn't want to paint it. I really liked the wood grain. I got this Cheers transfer a couple weeks ago and I have been wanting to use this so bad. I have so many ideas for some of the transfers in here and I'm just waiting to come across that perfect item at a thrift store or an estate sale that I can use these with. So as I was working through this transfer set, I started to come up with other ideas with some of these transfers, which I will share in a little bit. But it took me a little while to figure out which ones I wanted to put onto this cutting board. I ultimately decided that I wanted to make this more of like a cutting board for like a wine bar or your bar area. And in my booth, I already have some decanters, so I thought this would be a great piece to add to that vignette. So I'm going to grab some of the corks and a corkscrew and a couple other pieces from this transfer set, and I'm going to lay them out on here before I apply them to see how I like the arrangement of them, if I want to add anything, take anything away. So it does take me a little while to do this, but I had a lot of fun making this one. Once I got everything placed where I wanted them, then I slowly start adding the transfers to the cutting board. I start with the larger pieces and then work my way down to the corks because those are kind of filler pieces and I wanted to make sure I had those staple pieces where I wanted them, especially that label. I wanted to make sure that it was catty cornered and kind of would hang off the sides and the transfer would wrap onto the sides. Once I applied all of the transfers, I did add a couple coats of polyacrylic to this. Again, just like the other one, especially since I'm imagining this in a bar setting. If someone were to place, whether it's glasses on it or something else, I wanted to make sure that it was sealed really well and protected really well. So I did 3 coats of polyacrylic on the top of here. At the end of this video, I do have a couple clips of how I stage these items in my booth, so stick around until the very end for that. And I really hope that you enjoyed these projects and you liked this video. And let me know in the comments which one was your favorite. How is your week going? Do you guys have any fun projects that you are working on? I would love to know. And if you did like this video, please give it a thumbs up and please consider subscribing. Have a great rest of your week, everyone, and I will see you all in my next video. Bye, guys.